2019. Well, I'm here with Izzy Escobar. And why don't you tell us, Izzy, where you were born and when and...
I was born right here in Rodeo, New Mexico. I was born in July. Okay, and that's another thing too. My mom says I was born on July the 8th, 1944.
Uh-huh.
She had a midwife helping her. And when she finally got my birth certificate, it said July the 9th. Mother really did not like that, you know. She called her up. Well, I was there with you, Ramona, and she was born right after midnight. Oh, no, she wasn't. She was born before midnight. So anyway, that started something else, you know. But no, now I had to redo my birth certificate, so I'm born July the 9th, 1944.
And what are
Doesn't matter.
some of your early memories growing up as a girl that you want to share?
Well, I was the youngest of my whole family at the time. And so my older sisters, I knew them very little because they were way older than me. And by the time that I really, you know, wanted to know a little bit more about them, they were married and they were gone. Except for my two younger sisters. One of them, Alice, was born before Junior, and Nettie was born after Junior. So then I was, you know, kind of odd kid around, you know. And then later on, my little brother was adopted, and his name is Robert Gomez. And so he and I became more companions than I could have been with the rest of my family, you know, because we were the last of the lot.
Yeah, it's close in age to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I still go and see him, and he comes over here. He loves the whole family.
Yeah.
And Mother had told him, you know, who his real mother was and made sure that he knew where he came from. He says, no, I had nothing to do with them. This is my family now. So we have been really, really great. Well, my mom used to help out at what was the old hotel. It's already been, oh gosh, I don't remember how many years ago they knocked it down. It was starting to be a little too much, you know, and it was starting to fall apart. But she used to work there for a little while. And during the Second World War, when some of the men were out of this area, they started calling on some of the women to come and work, and Mom was one of them. And they would work for the railroad. And there was quite a few women that were working for the railroad here in Rodeo.
And what were they doing? What kind of
A
things?
lot of the things that the men had been doing, you know, clearing some of the railroad. And some of them, they were building they had to put in a water tank so that we would have some clean, fresh water here in Rodeo. And so they were building a pretty good sized mound, and on top of that, that's where they were going to be putting that tank. And so the women were the ones that were hired to do that. And so after the men started coming back from the war, the women were still doing a little bit, but they did get to be paid later on. You know, they were like all the other men that were going to be getting their money from the company.
Yeah.
And they did. And my
Did they get paid the same?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
So they did pretty well. But I always wondered, well, how did they do that? I mean, these women were all moms, but they needed to have people out there, and so they did it.
Wow.
So I think that's where we all got it from, all my sisters and I, because we've always been involved in all kinds of things.
You got what from that?
From, you know, working hard and doing things that just men are supposed to be doing. Because once we moved down here, we got the fire department started. We got the EMTs going. We had an ambulance here. Started working for the Forest Service, which I loved, and I loved being up there in the mountains. And it was just the most wonderful thing that could have happened, because I was out of the house.
Oh,
I missed my boys, but as long as I was doing that, I was enjoying every second of it, so.
I'm gonna take you back in time. So I'm gonna take you back to being a girl.
Okay, well, this little school was, as a matter of fact, where I live now, the original school was just across the road from where I live now. And it was a 2-room school. First to 4th grade was in one room, and 5th through 8th grade was in the other room. And that's where I started school. And my first grade teacher, which I will always think about and love because she was the most beloved woman, and she was terrific to all of us, she was great. And she later moved up to Portal, and she lived in Portal until she was too
Who
old.
was it? Sally?
Sally Richards.
Sally.
She and I, even after I started working up in the forest, I would stop to take something over there or just to visit with her, and oh, here comes my little girl, and here I am, I've already become a grandmother, and but she was the most wonderful person, and she always was with all of us.
Yeah.
Well, when she started over here, she had just gotten married, and so she was Sally Richards. And I will never forget her because she was the best. All I know is that I was a real tomboy because I had 4 boy cousins. I didn't have any girl cousins. The girl cousins were older than I was. I learned how to play baseball. I learned how to do most anything a boy was doing. They had bikes. I didn't have a bike, but as soon as I'd come around, I had a bike with them, so. And later on, when I went on to high school, I was in high school with them. So I was still kind of boyish, but they were my best friends. My cousins were my best friends. And I did have girlfriends too, but I was always kind of, closer to the boys.
What kind of things did you like doing for fun to do? Run
Okay,
around
we
the-
learned how to play baseball.
Okay.
And so at the time, the bar had this property right here where the community center is right now, and the property next to it. And so the people that were there at the bar saw that we needed a baseball field. And so they said, if you guys want to go out there and clear it out, that's fine with us. You're not going to bother us. Well, it so happened that during that time, we were getting a lot of farmers in the area. And so they started bringing the people from across the line, from Mexico. And these were all braceros, that they called them. And some of our farmers had places where they could keep them, where they could sleep and feed them and all this. And at the time, we were wanting to get this church going. Mom was already going full blast with this. We needed church.
Oh, with the idea of
Yes.
yes.
And we would get a priest that would only come once a month and have church services at Mom's house, Mom and Dad's house, which is where my brother lives now.
Okay.
And it was a small house. To us, it was big. But later on, as we got older, we saw, how did we do this? How did we live in such a small house, We were never hungry. We were never,
And how many were in the family total?
there were 7 of us until our little brother came around, and there was 8 of us, and then Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
We never felt uncomfortable. We got fed really well. We were well taken care of. Mom and Dad were the best parents ever. And once in a while, you wanted to go and kick the older brother because he thought he was the best thing going on,
Yeah.
But we got along. We got along. Somehow we did. But
But
anyway.
your mom, you were saying your mom was really wanted to build a church, have a church.
She told my dad, this priest that we have, he was here. He was Father Felipe Grivet, and he was the one that Mother turned to and said, we want to build a church. I want to be able to teach my kids catechism. I want them to become good Catholics. He says, okay, Ramona, you do whatever you can. And he gave Mother the first $50. He says, I don't have any more money than that, but I can give you this and you do whatever you want. Well, she got my aunt and uncle who lived in this house next door. And my aunt was my dad's younger sister. And so she got together with my Aunt Angela and told her, you know, this is what we need to do for our kids. Our kids are learning their catechism through us, but I would like to be able to bring the other kids that aren't getting anything at all in their homes, you know. And so they started. Oh man, did they get started. My sisters were teenagers, and they would call them in. Okay, we need to teach you guys how to make tamales, how to make tortillas, how to do this and how to do that, because we're going to start selling some food so we can build up the funds. They worked their butts off, let me tell you. They worked really hard. And we were there, but as little kids, well, why don't you guys get out and go play outside or whatever. Little by little, we started getting a little bit older, and we would kind of help out a little bit. And my dad and my uncle were wondering, well, where are we going to do this, you know? And a gentleman by the last name of Jarvis lived on the other side of town, across the railroad tracks. In fact, that's where the Autries live now. And the man that lived there at the time, and I can't think of his name now, I think their last name was Jarvis. And he and his wife were good friends of Mom and Dad's. And he says, Ramona, I have some property and I want to give you an acre of land from over there. If you can use it, you build over there. Mother went to see it and she says, we can't build over there.
It was on that side?
It was on that side of town. She says, I feel so bad. I hate to tell him no, but at the same time, it really doesn't look very good, because at the time there was one road that went across the railroad tracks, and it was to go to the Jarvis house. She says, we need it right in town. Well, it so happened that my aunt and uncle, that lived right here, owned this piece of property. And my uncle says, well, we don't use that piece of property right there. Why don't you just go ahead and start doing what you can and see if you can build it here. And so then they got started. And there was an older uncle. He had been married to my dad's oldest sister. And he, at one time, knew how to make adobes. He says, I can get started with that. We're going to dig a hole in the back. He says it'll be deep enough so that we can get all that mud going. And they went out and they started bringing a lot of this grass that just grows all over the place. They said, we can put it in there. And so they said, and we've got enough kids that we can put them to work. They think they're going to be playing in the mud, but we're going to put them to work. Oh, we thought that was the best thing in the world. We'd come back from school. Guess what? Look over there. You want to play in the mud? Oh, man, this is good, because Mom and Dad would not let us go and do that, you know.
Otherwise you get in trouble.
You're going to get your clothes all dirty. You're getting mud all over the place. Oh, we thought we were having the best fun in the world. Until Dad said, okay, that's it. And what we're going to do next, we don't want you anywhere near. They had already made the molds for the adobes. Once we put the mud in there, you're going to see all of it on the back side of the house. We don't want anybody even getting close to it. Because if you move it, if you step on it, that's it. Oh boy, that was terrible. We thought, oh man, they really don't love us after all, you know. No, but then we saw what was coming out of them. And they would show us. They made sure that we knew what it was that they were doing. Okay, once it starts drying on this side, we flip it over so the other side dries. And then they would come apart, you know, come off of the one mold that they had. Okay, now for sure, we don't want you over there because we're stacking them. They're going to keep drying out, and we don't want you guys playing baseball because I wanted to play baseball, and that was one of the places to play. So some of these people that were working out in the fields would come over, and they saw my dad and my uncle and my other uncle doing some of the work, and they said, well, we can help you out. You have been really good to us. They had been cooking, and they were selling tamales, they were selling burritos, whatever. And these men, well, they could cook their own if they wanted, but you know, the women were doing a better job, so they got these burritos and stuff to eat. And so they started coming over here, and they started helping my mom, my dad and my uncles to put everything together. And so they started building it.
Even though they didn't live here.
They didn't live here.
They were just here seasonally, I guess.
But they were just here for that, that time, you know, that was in the summertime. And they were, I mean, the people around here were very good to them too. And so they did help out, and they did all of that. And I'm telling you, my brother Junior and my, which is my brother-in-law Victor, they were the teenagers at the time, and they would come and they would help out however way they could. They were learning from everybody else. And so they really got to do a lot of work in there too. And once they built that, then later on,
That was the main church when
that
you
was
say
the
that,
main
just
church,
over- Yeah,
that was the main
we're
church.
sitting in an addition. I
Well,
guess.
this was an addition later. Well, Mom and Dad were getting older, and by that time the church was finished and we were having services.
Izzy, do you know about what year was that?
The church was finished in 1955.
I think so.
From 54 to 55 is when they were
Yeah.
building. And so then later on, which is about 15 to 20 years later, my sisters were married, my cousin was married, so now it was their turn. And I was in high school, and so they decided we need a little place to gather, which was this. And so they got a hold of St. Joseph's in Lordsburg. Is there anything that we can do to get some help from the diocese, you know, so that they can help us build this little place, you know, for all of us to gather? They said yes, and we will talk to them and see what we can do for you. And they did. They got these people to help us with some money, and we had this whole place built in I think it was in 72 or 3, something like that. And it was built. And by that time I was already married, and I had moved away. And when we moved back, this was already here.
Back when the church when you got built, how many people would come, and was there a priest here?
The priest was still coming at least twice a month then, because he had Lordsburg to take care of, and he could come at least once a month to begin with, and then later on twice a month. And so, as a matter of fact, we're still doing that because he has other little missions to take care of. But we do have, after we got everything going here, we started getting more and more people that were already working for the railroad, and they were Catholic, and they would have to go either to Lordsburg or Douglas, you know. And once we got this church going, we had more people coming in. They would go to Mom's house or my aunt's house when the priest was here, but it was always so tight, you know, in those places. And once we got this going, and our dad and our uncle started building the little pews however way they possibly could, and it wasn't until later on that we got our own pews to put in there. And so then my sisters and my cousins that were already married were the ones that were doing more here because our parents were already getting older and they couldn't do that much anymore. And so then once my mom and dad passed away and my aunt and uncle, for sure we were the ones doing all this. And then my sisters started getting older, and guess who's in charge now? My husband and I.
Yeah, it passes from generation
Yes.
to generation. You said that, I don't know if it was after you got married, but you moved away. at
We
some
moved to
point
California,
For a while.
and we were up there for a while, and eventually we moved down here, and that was in '76.
And what brought you back? I'm just curious.
We needed to come home. I mean, we lived in the city in California, and that was something we had never had to deal with. So much traffic, so many people, and so much this and so much that, and we were country people. I mean, you know, we knew everybody here, and the people in California were so hard to get to know. And once we moved back home, it was like we're home. And our little boys, they were getting older, and I didn't want them on the streets. I could see what was going on in the cities, and I did not want that. We moved over here. Before we knew it, our little boys had bike paths through the back. They would ride their bikes. They had a little place that they could get together, and they would play all kinds of games out there. And if they got hungry, they either came to my aunt over here, or they went to their grandma down the road, or one of their aunts along the way, and they'd call me on the phone. Mom, we're over here with Aunt Alice or Aunt Nettie or whoever. Oh, okay. Well, I knew that they were all right. And that's the way it's always been. I mean, we grew up that way too, you know?
Yeah.
You knew who was the person that you could go up to if something happened to you, and they could take care of you, you
That's
know?
what I was thinking.
Everybody was really great here, and they still are.
Yeah.
They still are.
What did you and your husband do when you moved back? And you have kids, and what were you doing for a living, or?
Well, at the time, the smelter had been opened over here at Plias. And so Ramon went up there, and he got a job right away. And so that's what he was doing. And that's what he was doing when we decided we needed to start our fire department and whatever else. And we were fully engulfed in all of that. So we got the whole community, okay? Everybody, once they found out what we wanted to do, everybody decided we have to be involved. And which meant at the time we still had a lot of farmers and ranchers and everybody out on the outskirts of Rodeo, up towards Portal, wherever, you know. And so we let them know what we were planning, and they all started coming to the meetings. And they all had ideas. Well, we can do this, or well, we know these people, you know, and that's where we got it from the people in San Simon. And they did come down and they told us what we needed to get started, you know. And my husband and Lloyd Mozzie got together, and they said, well, now we get to get the men together, because this was supposed to be a man thing, okay? But the women were all involved too. We were very much involved. We would have little dinners here. We would have, now that I think about it, I kind of smile, because, everybody had to put in a dime for every spoonful of food that they
Took.
They
So you
took.
would have a meal.
They would have a
And then
meal. You would have a salad, you would have some meat, you would have whatever, all the way down the tables. Each spoonful that you got was a dime.
Yeah.
And that was what we started, you know.
Yeah.
Where it came from, I don't know. Dime a dip, that's what it was,
Yeah,
a
there
dime
you
a
go.
dip. And so we were thinking, well, are we going to make any money out of this? Well, we did, we started, but it wasn't just a dime that people were leaving us, they were leaving more money, little by little, little by little. And we found out that the only way that we could get started with our fire department was that if we had at least one, either a fire truck or some equipment that we could start using for the fire department, that we could talk to the people up in Santa Fe to help us out to get our fire department ready. And so the guys really went to work then. And we had, by the end of that first year, we had enough money that they started looking around to see if they could find a used fire truck. And this gentleman that lived on the Arizona side called us up one day and he says, you know, my son works for a mine up in the, I'm not sure if it was in the Globe area. He said, and when I was talking to him, and I kind of got into that, you know, that everybody around here was wanting to start a fire department. And he said, you know what, Dad? We're trying to get rid of an older fire truck up here. Well, how much do you want for it? I don't remember exactly what he said. And so then his dad told him, well, they've only got maybe about $1,200. Well, let me talk to my boss and I'll, you know, put in a couple of tears here and there, you know, and see if I can talk him into selling it. Well, he did. They sold it to us for $1,000. As long as somebody was going to go up there and pick it up and bring it back.
Yeah.
So my husband and Lloyd and another man, I think it must have been the dad of that one guy, they went up there to pick it up and they brought it back. And then they were able to start talking to the fire marshal in Santa Fe. And they said, okay, as long as you are really wanting to get this thing going, and you better start getting all of your people that are interested in doing this, start taking some training. We have training at the time. They didn't have any real good place to have all of the fire training, but they would go from one town to another. They would go to Las Cruces, they would go to Deming, to Silver City, wherever, so that people could get this training. Well, they put up a list. Okay, who's going to be with the fire department? Well, the women were up there, you know, everybody's signing their name. We want to be in the fire department. Well, you realize that this is man's work? Hey, you guys have us working too. We have done a lot of the work around this area too. Okay. So
Including
we did.
your mother.
Well, my mother was very much involved, although at the time, she really wasn't going to be able to get into the fire trucks
No, I knew
or
that,
whatever.
but I was thinking
But
back in the
yes,
war,
she did a lot of that work.
Yeah.
But she had her daughters that saw what she was doing, and we all got into that ourselves.
Yeah.
We had everybody signed up. We knew the major part of them were not going to be able to go. But we started going to all kinds of training, and once we got that going,
About
then
when was that?
73 when we got the fire truck. And then we had started our training. And then we had been talking about, well, okay, we got the fire department going. We still have some money left over. What are we going to do with this money? But that was us women, okay? The men were gung-ho about getting the fire truck. Well, you know what we need? We need a community center. Well, we better start doing some more work around here because we don't have enough to have a building, you know, for this. Well, let's contact the county. So we contacted the county. And they said, well, you know, you have to start making sure that you have some money that you can work with, and we'll see what we can do for you. And that's how we got this community center. We worked pretty hard for that. And at the time, it was just one section.
Yeah. Same thing, you did a lot of
A lot of
money.
raising money and all that.
Yeah.
And once we got that going, no, it was before we got that going, we decided, and there was 5 of us. My sister Alice, my sister Nettie, my cousin Tony, Custy, who had the store, and I. And we were all sitting together, and Custy said, You know what's really odd? The 4th of July, nobody is in here in town.
Mm.
Everybody's going up to Plias because they had a humdinger of 4th of July up there.
Yeah.
We ought to do something here in Rodeo. And I said, like what? She says, well, we've got enough kids here. They could all get dressed up. We could do something. We've got pickups. We can do something here in town. I said, yeah, that's a great idea. I said, and how are we going to do that? Well, we'll get everybody together. You know, we still have some meetings to take care of. We're getting this community center pretty soon, but we've got to get this going. So we did, and we called up people from Portal, people from the areas, the farmers, the ranchers, and all that. Oh, everybody was for it. Wonderful idea. That way we don't have to travel so far, you know, to go to these parades and stuff. So we got to doing that. We had our first parade, our second, our third, our fourth. I think it was the 5th parade. And this gal that was in charge of the highway department came over to me one time. She says, Izzy, do you know that what you guys are doing is wrong? I said, why? You guys could get in trouble because you're closing the highway.
Mm.
And guess what? I'm in charge of the highway. And because I really like you guys, you'd better talk to the county and tell them that you need to get them started with getting permission from Deming, where they have the main office over there. Tell them what you guys are planning. Don't tell them you've already been doing it. You're planning on doing this, and that way we will send the sheriff's department to close the road. So I got the rest of my people over there, and I told them what had happened. Really? Yes. Okay. Well, Izzy, you already know who's up there in the county seat, you know, so can you go talk to them? Sure. And so we talked to them, and sure, we'll send the paperwork. We'll just have you sign what it is and how long it's going to be and how many people and all this sort of stuff. And okay, well, we already knew. We had 5 years worth already. We knew how many people would show up. And we never charge anybody for going up there. Whatever they bring, that's fine. You know, it was wonderful and everybody had a great time. And so once we got this building done, because we were having the food over here, come and get your plate, go outside and go sit wherever you could and you eat it out there. But once we got this building, it was wonderful.
Now you had space for everybody.
We had space for everybody. We had the restrooms, we had the kitchen, but it was just one small space. Mm-hmm. Later on, we built enough funds where we could add on another place over here. And we had already bought this property from some people that lived in Portal. And so we worked so hard for that.
When was that again?
78,
Okay.
79, because I'm thinking about my younger son, Jeremy. He was born in 77.
Okay.
So it was the very next year when we started doing all of these things.
Yeah.
And Mother said, I never thought that my children would ever get so involved with all of this. And look what you guys are doing. I said, Mom, we saw what you did. Mm-hmm. And if it was good enough for you, it's good enough for all these kids that you had, you know, and we're going to do something with our little town.
Yeah.
She said, very good, very good. I'm so glad.
Mm-hmm. That was neat that they could see that.
Yes.
That they lived long enough to see the changes and what you guys did.
And so, yes, we got everybody involved with it, and little by little, you know, we started getting more people involved with the community too. And I'm still involved with it. And my two sisters, we just lost a sister this past year, and my sister Alice and I are the only ones in town, and well, along with my brother Junior. But we still have our 4th of July parade. We have our dinners over here. We have all things happening over here, and it's just great because all the people can get together anytime they feel like it. Portal can come down and have something going on over here, or we go up there and help them out too. So it's a good community. It's great for all of us to be able to live close to each other and know that we can depend on those people, you know, for one thing or another. And it's been that way all the time.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Mhm.
I'm gonna switch us to a totally different topic.
Okay.
Okay, the Forest Service.
The Forest Service. Well, because I took all that training with the fire department.
Oh.
We went all the way up to Santa Fe. I went with my husband everywhere that he had to go and get training, and I was one of the ones that took a lot of that training. And you should have seen us women when we had a fire and the guys were at work. We'd take off wherever it was, and at the time, we were able to go into Arizona because they didn't have a fire department. Once they had a fire department, then my husband had to, because he's a fire chief, and he has been since day one, you know. And they told him, well, now we have to have a lot of paperwork done between Arizona and New Mexico, because now Arizona has to say yes to you going into there, or them. You have to have them sign up over here in New Mexico for them to come over here if they're needed. So we did that. And then somebody says, we need EMTs here in Rodeo. And when we had all this going already, and the 4th of July, we still had money to work with. And we had this, he was a retired lawyer that lived up towards the cemetery up here. He says, Izzy, I got to meet this gentleman at Cochise County. He's one of the ones that comes to Douglas and doing some training, and they're teaching some of these college kids, you know, about the fire departments and all that. Not only that, but they're teaching them to be EMTs. He says, and I think we need EMTs here in Rodeo. I said, I don't want anything to do with that. He says, but Izzy, you know, you and Ramon are involved with everything else. I think you really should. And so I told my husband, I don't want to do that. Well, our Lord is always looking at us, okay? We took our boys fishing, and coming back, we got caught up in a dust storm that you couldn't believe just before we got to Road Forks. And so we had to pull our little trailer off to the side, and our boys were in there. The 2 older boys got down. What are you guys going to do? Well, we're going to go see if we can help out, because there were trucks that had smashed into cars, and we knew there was something happening there. And I told Ramon, let's go see what we can help with. And the 2 older boys, they were already teenagers. Mom, we'll go in, we'll see what we can help with. And my little boy, I told him, you stay in the truck, don't you even think about going out, you know? Okay, Mom. And he had a little game that he was playing with, so we took the 2 older boys. Well, pretty soon the ambulances came in, and so we were helping, either bringing whatever they needed or holding on to some people that wanted to jump up and move around and whatever. After we finished, I looked at my husband. I mean, we were a mess. Dust and our hair standing up on end and the whole thing. I said, are you thinking what I'm thinking? He says, it hit me when I saw these trucks. He says, somebody's telling us that we better do what we can.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, you're right. So we came back, and so I called whoever was in charge of that. Okay, you got us. So the young man that was going to teach us came down. He says, how many people are there that are wanting to do this? Well, there was 12 or 14 of us here in Rodeo. He says, let me tell you something. The ones up there in Portal, there's 14 up there too. Really? Yes? He says, and I can't get all of you in one place and try and teach you in one place. He says, how about if I have the Rodeo and Apache people gather at the school in Apache? and I will come down and give you some training there. And the people from Portal will go to the library, and I will teach them. Okay. So we took our courses, and we did really well, and then we had to go. The first thing that we had to do so that they could see how we were doing was to help out in the hospital in Sierra Vista when they were bringing in somebody that was either hurt or whatever, and we had to see they had to see what we were already trained to do. And so that's how we got our first bite at trying to help somebody. Oh man, it was a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we thought, well, we've got that going pretty good. We did really, really well. And so then we had, what was his name? He was in charge of the ambulance there in Lordsburg. He says, you're not out of the woods yet. He says, you got training in Arizona.
Oh.
You have to be trained in New Mexico. Because we had asked if we could have an ambulance here. Mm-hmm. He says, you can have all the ambulances you want, but you can't even touch them because you haven't been trained here. He was the neatest person. Don McNutt. He had been teaching people forever. And so we said, well, okay, here we go again. But this one, I mean, they taught us over there mostly through books. And yes, we did CPR by hand and whatever else they were going to teach us. This one, he set up, they had just closed up the old hospital. They set up, this one you learn how to do this one thing. This next room, you learn how to do this other, this one, and that one. Oh my gosh, what are we doing here? And so we took the training, and we did really well. He was a terrific teacher. He had had a lot of training, and he was the one that was teaching everybody else. And so we did that. We brought our ambulance down. And they did give us permission through Arizona that we could take it into Arizona. That was the only ambulance that was in the area. So we would go to Apache, go to Portal. And we did have some EMTs in Portal. And so they would help us out as much as they could, but they could not go in the ambulance with us. We were trained to work with the ambulance. Oh my, we worked hard around here. A lot of training. If it wasn't through the fire department, it was with the ambulance, EMTs. Well, I was still doing all of that, and my son, Jeremy, the youngest, graduated, and he got all kinds of scholarships, and he was going to college. And I'm thinking, oh, I hope he goes to Silver City, or even Las Cruces. That's still not too far. He went to the furthest college, Eastern New Mexico University. I said, do you hate your mother that bad? Why, Mom? You're going to the other side of the state and your mom and dad are staying over here. Mom, I want to go over there because I'm very interested in acting. Oh boy, okay. And he had scholarships up and down and all around, so he was going to be all right. But I was going to miss that kid. So anyway, he went off. And here I am at home. My husband was working, and here I am, Oh, I had my friends and everything, and I was still involved with the fire department, with the ambulance and everything.
But you needed more to do.
Louis came in one day. Ramon and I were out walking.
Louis Pope, right?
Louis Pope.
Okay.
And he stopped. How are you guys doing? Oh, we're doing okay. Izzy, by any chance, do you know of anybody that might be interested in helping out at the Visitor Center? I will. Really, Izzy? He says, the only thing I can help you with is just with the gas for your vehicle, and that's about it.
Can't pay you anything.
I can't pay you anything. It's mostly volunteer. I said, well, you wouldn't even have to pay that, you know. You can if you want, and if that's what you're gonna do, fine. But I need to get out of the house. I need to go somewhere. He says, okay, then can you come in? This was like on a Thursday. He says, can you come in on Monday? He says, Nancy McAvoy is working up there right now, and you come in on Monday, she'll show you what you have to do and all that. Well, I did that for about 4 years, I think it was.
What year was this, about?
85 or 86.
Somewhere in here.
And
what did you do when you went? What were
Well-
you supposed to do?
people would come in and we'd show them, you know, the maps, and if they wanted to go camping, we'd tell them where to go, and if they wanted to do some of the trails, well, we had all the maps and everything. But you know, it was all right. It was okay, and Nancy and I got along really well, and on days that she had off, well, I'd take care of the place, and Louis would come in, and we'd have coffee with him, and he'd let us know what was going on up there, and finally, when they did close the smelter, Ramon says, well, I have to start finding another job. And then I told Louis, I need to quit this that I'm doing here. I'm not making any money here, but I need to help my husband now. And he says, Izzy, don't go. I'm getting so used to having both of you here, you know, and you take care of all these people and everything. And I said, I'm sorry, but I have to go find a job. Well, the smelter, the people there offered Ramon some training with heavy equipment. And he says, well, that I can probably do. I've already have some knowledge of it, and maybe I can try to see if I can get with a highway department. And so he says, but they're taking in not just the husband, but the wives too. So if you want to take some training. And I said, what kind of training? He says, well, they'll teach you how to work with a
Computer?
computer. And I thought, oh, shoot. I said, okay, well, okay, I'll give it a try. You know, my other sons have already learned how to do it. Mom is a dummy. I'll try somehow. Well, I got into it. I took all the training, and I did really, really well. I mean, I was real surprised. I did terrific. And they even gave me my computer that they had given me to work with, and I could bring it home. And so then, like around January, they called Ramon that he had a job already with the highway department. And I'm thinking, oh, don't call me to work with this computer, because it's all right at home or somewhere else, but if I have to make it something that I have to be behind this darn thing, I don't want it. A few days after they had called Ramon to give him that job, Louis called me. Izzy, I have been working my butt off for you. And I said, what are you doing, Louis? I went and I talked to my boss, and I talked to everybody else up here. I got you a job. Doing what? Do you want to work out in the canyon? You would have to clean some of the places. You have to talk to people. I love talking to people. I said, Louis, I could almost kiss you if you weren't out, you know, at home. He says, really? Are you really wanting to do that? I said, absolutely. I would love to be out there. I have always wanted to go up there and talk to people. I love talking to people. He says, okay, show up on, and he told me the date. And that was just before Easter. And that's when we would open the canyon every Easter, you know. He says, I'll get you your uniforms. I'll get you everything. I just need to know your sizes, whatever you need to. But you have to buy your own boots. Oh, yes, I'll be in town tomorrow. I'll go and find some boots, and I'll be there. Okay, and you're going to have your own truck up here. You have to drive yourself up here, but you have a truck. You can do that. Okay.
Wow.
So I went up there, and I said, okay, Louis, I know how to clean. I love being out in the open. I know how to clean these campgrounds, and I don't mind talking to people. I love talking to people. I find out a lot of things, with talking with people. And I certainly did. I met up with the people that were out there trying to teach people, what kind of snakes these were, or what kind of birds those were, or what kind of whatever animal was in the area. And I would stop and I would visit with them, and I would ask them more questions, and I started getting some of the books that we had there at the Visitor Center. And I would ask them questions about this or that. Well, I saw this and I saw that. And, oh, yeah, well, you just saw whatever, And the Trogon was something that I had never seen before. Well, just listen to them. Just listen for that sound, and they would tell me what it was. Well, my first tour going through Paradise and up towards, where it meets up with the road that goes on up to the top. I stopped. I saw this silly looking bird up there. I said, oh, wow. I wonder if that's a trogon right there. Well, it wasn't the trogon that they usually see down here, down below. It was a different kind of trogon. And they hardly ever see it up there. Eared trogon.
Eared.
And I thought, okay, so stay still so I'll be able to see you all around. That silly bird turned around. He showed me what he looked from behind. He turned around. He wanted me to see what he looked up front. I mean, he was just doing this for me. And I thought, well, what the heck is this bird doing, And I saw him upside down, inside out, and all around. And I went back, and there's that picture of that silly bird right there where I had been seeing him before. They have one of the elegant trogon. Eared one. And I walked in and I said, Nancy, because Nancy was still working up there, I just saw that silly bird up there. And I told her what he had been doing, turning around and doing this. And, I mean, he was really showing off everything. Izzy, we haven't seen one of those in a long time. I said, well, he showed up for me. And yet I hadn't seen the elegant trogon. And when Louis came in, I told him what I had seen. Izzy, don't you dare tell those birders out there what you saw over there, because we're going to have them all piled up and everything. I said, oh, don't worry about it. I said, the one that I really wanted to see was the elegant one. He says, well, first chance I have, if I see one, I'll come after you. One day he drove up, screeched, and Izzy, get in this truck. Where are we going, Louis? Do you need some help with something? No, get in the truck. Come on, we're going somewhere. He took me down where we had the big tank, and we went every other day or whatever to make sure that the water was coming in and there wasn't anything wrong and whatever. He says, come on over here. Now we're going to walk a little ways and look up in the tree. And there was the male and the female right there. I said, these are the elegant trogons. He said, that's what it is. And ever since then, everywhere, I guess I just wasn't looking for them. They were showing up everywhere. I was seeing them. I got to see what a coati was. I got to see the bears. I mean, all kind of animals.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And I visited with somebody that was trying to teach people how to make out this kind of bug or that kind of animal or this kind of snake or whatever. And I'd stand there and I'd visit with them until I would get a little more information and writing it all down, because I wanted to learn this too. And these people that were paying him to go with him, I was getting free. And I would go all the way up to Rustler Park.
That's what I wondered.
And I went all the way into Pinery Canyon, all of that area, all of that. And then one year when we had been having some fires in different areas, Louis says, Izzy, you feel like traveling? Oh, absolutely. Why? He says, well, first of all, I want you to go down and see all of these little canyons that we have on this side of the Chiricahuas. and on that side of the Chiricahuas. And then I want you to go on the other side. They had given me a young girl to go with me to work during the summertime. And so her name was Priscilla. As a matter of fact, she's the daughter of these people living next door. And she was working with me that summer. We got to see places. I was born and raised here, but I had never seen all these canyons until that one time. We put our lunch in there and we had a blast. We had the most wonderful time going in and out of all these canyons. We went down on Geronimo Trail down in that area. We went up into all of these little canyons in here, went around to Rucker, and we went around to, and now I can't think of that other canyon. And I mean, it was wonderful, but we had to go out there and make sure that somebody hadn't started a fire and left it going. And if we did see anything like that, we were to put it out, so we carried water with us, and we did all of that work. It was fantastic. I would work from just before Easter till the first day of October, and then I got the winter off. And that was good.
Yeah.
That was good, because then I had a chance to just stay at home and spend some time with my husband and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
What was it like up in Pioneer Canyon and up high?
Oh, that was really something.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world
It
up there.
is, and going up like where I had never been to. I had been up at Rustler's, but I hadn't been into, Pinery, and that was really quite a thing there. And then where they had it was kind of like a Boy Scout camp that they had up there. And so I got to be up there, and it was pretty interesting, because I got to see a lot of the places that I didn't even know existed. Well, after Louis left, then we got a new person that came in, a new boss, and I thought, oh boy, I'm going to have to learn how to work with this person. And his name was Armando. So I stayed on.
I had two questions.
Okay.
Do you know anything about the fire towers? At all?
Very little, although when we did have fires up there, because I was with the fire department here, then they would pay me through the Forest Service, because I had all the training to do the work. And even though we took our truck from Rodeo, I would get paid through the Forest Service.
Did you fight any fires up in?
We were up there in Rustler Park one time when we had one of the rattlesnake fires. We had 2 rattlesnake fires, and I was already working up there. And at the time, they asked our fire department to be on the lookout with some of the cabins that were way up there at Rustler's, and make sure that the fire didn't get to the cabins up there, and we were up there. But that was as much as they were wanting me to help out,
Yeah.
because all of the other firefighters were already out there, and they were doing their job.
And then
No.
what seasons, how many years were you with the Forest Service? And
Oh my
what-
gosh, I must have been there for, I think it was 85 when I started working up there. I worked maybe
20.
about 12 years, more or less.
That's what I was.
More or less, about like that.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and then finally, Ramon says, I'm getting ready to retire. And I said, you know what, I'm getting tired. It was already, that one year, I was already feeling it. I took a little time off, because one of the times I had another girl working with me, and we were called to come down and help them, because there was a fire just just as you're leaving the canyon, and they needed everybody around, because this one kid had I think there were some tanks of propane, and something happened, and they caught in fire. One of them caught in fire. And so they said, we've got to go over there to keep the rest of the area from, catching fire. And so we went over there, and we had our shovels, we had everything going with us. And this one girl that was with me, she says, Izzy, I'll get the shovels down, so that when you get down, I'll give you one, and I'll take the other one. And when I got down, I don't know how I stepped, but my knee went out. It was hurting. And so I stood there, I said, you go ahead, the guys are already there. And if you see Louis around, tell him I can't move. He says, what's happened? I said, I don't know, I did something to my knee. Well, there was this one truck, and I met up with it, and we were coming back from one of the campgrounds, and this truck saw us coming and turned around. And I told Priscilla, that was the girl that was with me, I said, Priscilla, get the license plate number. Okay, and why am I doing this? I said, just get it, okay? And look at the make of the truck and the color and the whole thing. And I'm going to pass him, and we're going to be nice, we're going to just wave to him. And you see how many people there are in there. And there was just the one man. And he waved at us, the whole thing. And I said, okay, when we get down to the next campground, I'm going to stop and we're going to call Louis. And what's Louis going to do? He's going to come and check these people because these people are out looking for snakes. Well, how can you tell? I said, did you see what he had in the back of the truck? He had all kinds of stuff, He had these square things, plastic containers with the lids on them, and he had buckets and all this. And I said, he's been up to something. Well, yeah, they did get somebody. They got, I'm not sure, Louis called somebody to come in, and they checked on him, and yes, that's what he was doing.
So he's collecting snakes to sell them?
He was collecting snakes, and then they take off. Where they sell them, I don't know. And then there was another time, and Nancy and I were there. I had just come in for lunch, and we were sitting there. She says, oh, by the way, somebody just called me, and they've seen this man, and we know that he's here looking for rattlesnakes. He's already been here before. So what I want you to do, says, we'll act like the dumb blondes, around here. Okay. Says, I'll get to talking to him. If you go out through the back, go around and check his truck and tell me what you see. Okay. So we did that. We acted dumb blondes, and talking and laughing and joking and the whole work. And I said, well, I've got to go outside and, do whatever and go clean the truck or whatever. I went around, and sure enough, he had all of his equipment in there. So I came in and I said, well, I got things done outside. All right. And meantime, he was visiting with Nancy. He got to visiting there with her, and finally he says, I'm going to go up in the canyon. I haven't been up here in a long time, and on and on and on. Well, the minute he left, Nancy says, now we're calling the guys. And the guys called whoever was in charge of all of this, Well, he made it up in the canyon, and he came back, and we didn't see him go by, but Louis said he had seen him go out of the canyon. And they caught him before he got to Lordsburg, and he had rattlesnakes in the back. When I did start working up in the forest, when I had the chance in the fall, they were having all kinds of projects up here in Portal, and we could go into the fire department building over there. And they had all kinds of things going on. They would have people come in. They would teach you how to work with like painting or drawing or whatever. And I've always been involved with stuff like that, and I love doing it. And one of the persons that was coming up there, he did work with metal. And he would make these little, well, kind of like what you have, for the plug-ins or for the switches or whatever. Yeah. And he would make really neat designs, and he showed us how to make the little little things on them to make them look better, you know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we were working on that, and my friend Bonnie Catanzaro was there, and she says, Izzy, if I had known you were coming up here, we could have gotten together, but I want you to meet my friend. And she's very much involved with doing a lot of projects. And so we had been thinking about getting a group together of women and learning how to do some things together. I said, okay. So we got to doing that, and then the next week we came in and did something different and all that. And then she said, well, my friend wants to learn how to do some things with pine needles. And I said, pine needles, really? She says, yeah. Do you think you'd be interested? And I said, I'm interested in a lot of stuff. As long as I keep my hands busy, you know, I love doing stuff like that. She says, well, let's get together. We're going to go to her house because they were already stopping all of that they were doing up there, you know. And that was through the Chiricahua, the gallery. Well, we learned how to paint like little animals, and we learned how to do this and that. Well, she finally got that thing with the pine needles. And I said, so you've been up there getting pine needles off of our trees, huh? She said, well, yeah, we've been getting some, the ones that have fallen off the tree. I said, that's all right. We don't care about that, you know. I said, but where did you learn to do this? Because she was learning herself. She hadn't learned how to do that yet. She wanted to get everybody interested in it, and that way some of us could learn, and if others weren't interested in it, well, they could go on with something else. We got started with this, and we all learned how to make our first baskets. I mean, they were wobbly one side or wobbly the other side or whatever, and some of them didn't even look very pretty, you know. And some of them just completely gave up on it, and I thought, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to learn how to do this. And if I can learn how to do this, then we can get started with it. Well, we had some girls that were having a hard time learning how to do this. And I thought, I've got to be able to make them look like the baskets that they're supposed to look like, you know, instead of falling apart or some of them going one way or the other. And so I said, but what do we use? I mean, they had brought us some little tiny spools of sinew. And this is the wax sinew. And I said, where are we going to get all this stuff from? We don't have any place to order from here, you know. And went on and said, well, we'll get on the internet and we're going to find out. Well, I started making them, and I started loving it. I mean, it was fantastic. To me, it was the most beautiful thing that could ever happen. And after I got rid of my wobbly ones, I kept some of them, you know, just to let me know, well, you're doing better now, you know, you're not so bad. And so I started making them. And Louis had seen one of them. He says, Izzy, where'd you learn to do that? I said, well, we ladies get together, and between all of us, we figured out how to do it. And this other lady had seen them, and she's a friend that lives in the area. She says, I want one of those baskets. I said, but it's not even perfect. I said, it's all right, but it's not really perfect. She says, well, when you make your first perfect one, please let me know. Well, I made a couple of them. And around that same time, some of the other ladies were making different things. Some of them were making things with soap, things with materials, crocheting and stuff like that. And so I made the first few baskets. Oh, well, we've got, since we're the mixed nuts now, because we're all mixed up people, you know, mixed one way or the other, but since we were nutty already, we may as well be the mixed nuts. And we thought, you know what would really be nice, since we're already making a lot of really neat stuff, is for us to have a bazaar, an arts and crafts thing that we can ask the community center. And since I was already one of the community center people, no problem.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that. And people thought we were nuts, you know. Yeah, we were. But anyway, we were getting ready to have a good time. And so some of us were doing some cooking. We would have stews or sandwiches or something to cook. And we started getting in touch with people from Douglas, from Lordsburg, from Animas, people that are interested in doing arts and crafts. You want to sell your things? Bring them over here. We were charging, I think at the time it was $15 to take over a table. And so here we are setting up tables, you know, and put a name on there and the whole thing. And we did really well. We did so well. And we had our baskets and we sold our baskets. We had a table full of baskets and we sold every one of those baskets. And so we started doing that and we did terrifically well. Every year that we had it here, because they had been doing it in Animas, having the arts and crafts over there. And we thought, well, we can do it here, and that way we get the people from Portal, people from Douglas, people from Lordsburg, and we have done it the Saturday before Thanksgiving ever since. And we started getting more and more people. And we have a really terrific group of people that every year they try and make it over here. Well, some of my ladies decided, it's too much work to do this. And I can't stop. It's just like I needed to do this, I wanted to do this, I have to do this, and I'm going to keep on doing it. And I love doing it, yeah. And so there's times that I tell my husband I'm running out of pine needles. Okay, well, let's go to Portal, you know, get some more pine needles. And then not only that, after you finish with this, they're still kind of wobbly. And we had some friends that had a bunch of bees. They had beehives everywhere. And so they had the wax. And one of the ladies says, if you read the book where we're learning how to do this, it does say that you can melt the wax, put it on there, put it in the oven for just a few minutes until it completely soaks in, and you have a hard basket. And then to top it off, the lady that had all of the beeswax, her husband passed away. And she decided that's enough for the bees, you know, for me. And she had these 2 big old square chunks of beeswax. Do you girls want to buy it? Well, I bought a bunch of the smaller ones, and 2 of my friends bought the big chunks. Well, one of them left. She started getting older and she started getting sick, and she moved to be with her brother. And first thing she did, here Izzy, gave me a big old chunk of beeswax. And so that one, I wait until summertime, put it out in the sun, let it soften, and then I start cutting pieces off of it. And I have it in small pieces so that I can get these done a little bit better than having to wait until the whole darn thing is already melted, you know. I do a lot of beading work too. I make earrings. I like the Indian designs on there, so I make them. I make necklaces and all kinds of stuff. And so whenever my kids want to give Mom a present, they go out and look for some beads that Mom might be able to use. So anytime that we have the arts and crafts, I set up everything that I've ever made throughout the year, and I sell everything. But I love doing this. I tell everybody, it keeps me out of trouble.